All right, hello everyone watching this video. Um, Here we have me and DJ, and we're going to read some suttas that are pretty short and see if any discussion arises from that. This is from the Anguttara Nikaya, Discourses of the Buddha and Ontology, Part 1. It's translated directly from the Pali by Jnana Panika Thera and Bhikkhu Bodhi. All right, so for those of you that don't know, the Pali Canon is the oldest discourses we have given by the Buddha. Translated from a language that would have been the closest language to what the Buddha actually spoke, as opposed to the kind of the stuff that came much later after the death of the Buddha. The Pali Canon was closest to the original time that the Buddha lived and taught. And the Buddha was a real person. It wasn't a mythical creature like that kind of happens in other forms of Buddhism. It's not a mythical creature like Amitabha or something like that. It was a real dude with a real teaching. Yeah, there's no really, it's not really woo-woo. Everything is based off real subjective experience, and the laws that govern our real subjective experience. All right, so I'm just going to start off with the first one that pops up here, and then I'll probably bounce around and just kind of play it by ear. So the first one is called the mind. Okay, and the Buddha says, "No other thing do I know, O monks, that is so intractable as an undeveloped mind. An undeveloped mind is truly intractable. No other thing do I know, O monks, that is so tractable as a developed mind. A developed mind is truly tractable. No other thing do I know, O monks, that brings so much suffering as an undeveloped and uncultivated mind. An undeveloped and uncultivated mind truly brings suffering. No other thing do I know, O monks, that brings so much happiness as a developed and cultivated mind. A developed and cultivated mind truly brings happiness. No other thing do I know, O monks, that brings so much harm as a mind that is untamed, unguarded, unprotected, and uncontrolled. Such a mind truly brings harm. No other thing do I know, O monks, that brings so much benefit as a mind that is tamed, guarded, protected, and controlled. Such a mind truly brings great benefit." All right. So sorry, I think there's a bit of background noise. One sec. Oh, door's closed. Yeah, I'm over at my relatives for Thanksgiving. So I'm giving this Dhamma talk from a basement here. But it's a good place for a Dhamma talk. Yeah, so the mind. The teachings of the Buddha all are pertaining to the development and the training of your own mind, right? So it's not about God's mind, somebody else's mind doing it for you. No, training your own mind. And that's what either leads to your own suffering personally experienced, or your own liberation personally experienced by you, right? No one else. And if you think about it, truer words have never been spoken. All the suffering, all the harm that you see in the world, it all originates from the mind of people, right? So any sort of violence that happens, the violence starts in the mind of that person or the minds of a group of people, and then manifests itself as a harmful action, right? Or the sorrow, lamentation, and despair that someone experiences starts in the mind of that person. So it starts in the thoughts, the type of thoughts that that person is having that happen as a byproduct of their habitual tendencies and conditionings. So if you don't watch what your mind is doing, if you don't guard what your mind is doing, if you don't intentionally train what your mind is doing, you will end up in sorrow, lamentation, and despair, right? You will end up in a miserable state because that's the natural thing for the mind to do when it's untrained, undeveloped, and unguarded, right? So that's pretty important, you know. It's the first one in the group of things here, right? But that it's not like it's a good thing because it's really empowers the individual, right? So if you do train your mind, if you do guard your mind, if you do develop and cultivate your mind, it truly brings happiness, and happiness that is uh truly liberating and truly satisfying and truly fulfilling. So um you decide whether you are going to be happy or not, whether you are going to be liberated or not. It's literally all in your head, right? It's up to you. All right, so DJ, do you have any comments about that, or would you like me to just keep going with another one?
Yeah, yeah, I think that's very direct there and very to the point, which is really nice. It really goes to like the mind, being the forerunner. It talks about that in the Dhammapada, right? So yeah, seeing that, core theme of, developing and cultivating the mind, that's a very powerful, thing. And when we recognize like, yeah, that, you know, satisfaction or the absence of satisfaction, dissatisfaction or discontentedness is born from the mind, right? That, it's so powerful, to actually train that and to directly look, because that's where it's directly experienced. That's where it actually, has any kind of imprint. Yeah. So, yeah, very, very good stuff.
Yeah, and so um the next one is really important. It's about the mind too. But I'm just gonna read it. Let me move this. No other thing do I know, O monks, that changes so quickly as the mind. It is not easy to give a simile for how quickly the mind changes. All right, so the Buddha is always giving similes about things. Oh, welcome, Alexander. Good to see you. Happy
Welcome.
to have you join here. All right, now we got a good game going.
What's
I'm gonna
up,
put this
guys?
on because I'm kind of cold. Yeah, I'm just reading like short suttas from the Anguttara Nikaya. And the first one we read was the mind. And the Buddha was saying he doesn't know anything other than the mind that causes so much suffering and harm, or so much happiness and benefit as the mind. right? So a lot of people want to blame something else, like outside of their own mind. They want to blame, like, oh, it's the government. The government is why I'm miserable, or it's the state of women today, man. They're just like, the dating scene is so messed up, or like, it's just they're always blaming something else for why they're not happy, right? But no, actually, it's literally just your own mind, and what your mind is doing is creating your suffering, right? You could be happy, irrespective of the the economy, how much the gas prices are. That's another one. I could look at the gas prices and that could ruin my whole day. It's like almost like $5 here in California per gallon, right? And I could bitch and moan about it all day long, but then, like, I could just not do that and I would just be happy camper, right? I'm still alive, still breathing. The gas prices aren't It's not physically harming me, the gas prices, right? It's only mentally harming me if I allow my mind to create that suffering for myself. Okay, but
Yeah,
anyways,
to turn on itself.
yeah, yeah, exactly. But people, but the untrained and the uncultivated mind, they don't notice this. They think that it's really the gas prices that's making them suffer. Right? They don't notice how quickly the mind makes the decision to go down that route. And that ties in directly to the next passage here that I'm going to read. So this is the mind 2. So part 2. No other thing do I know, O monks, that changes so quickly as the mind. It is not easy to give a simile for how quickly the mind changes. Right. So the Buddha is always giving similes for things, and like really good similes to make something make sense. But the mind is so fast that there's no simile for it. Right. It's fast. It's the fastest thing we know. Because everything we perceive is through the mind, the speed of the mind is the fastest thing in the universe. Because the only thing we can perceive is through, so even if we're perceiving like the speed of light, it's a mental perception of the speed of light. So we can only perceive how fast the mind is, that it experiences a certain phenomena, if that makes sense. We can extrapolate and theorize that there's something faster than the mind, but there can never be anything experienced that is quicker than the mind, right? So the mind is the fastest thing in the universe for all we know. And it is extremely quick. And that's why the training of the mind not only involves repetition, but it involves reaction time too. So how quickly can you catch what it's doing, right? You may be doing super good, and then all of a sudden it changes in a heartbeat, right? Somebody says something you don't like to, boom, you're pissed off, right? Even someone gives you a bad look, you don't like the way they looked at you. It changes so rapidly. Uh, let's see. Okay, this mind, O monks, is luminous, but it is defiled by advent adventious adventitious. Okay, so I don't know how to pronounce that word. Adventi. So I'm just gonna put that in the advantageous. Just yeah, advantageous defilements. Yeah, sometimes Bhikkhu Bodhi likes to use big words that I don't understand. That's just how he translates stuff. The uninstructed worldling does not understand this as it really is. Therefore, for him, there is no mental development. This mind, O monk, is luminous, and it is freed from adventitious defilements. The instructed noble disciple understands this as it really is. Therefore, for him, there is mental development. Right. So, if you understand how quickly the mind is, you can catch up with it, and you can totally stay with how fast the mind is going and stay in a wholesome state of mind, because it's not faster than you, because it's your own mind, right? Yeah, it's fast, but you are experiencing how fast it is. So if you, with the right effort and the right training, you can develop the speed and the reaction time to stay with every single mind moment as it happens, and not allow yourself to go into any hindrance, into any state of defilement, right? And when a hindrance or a defilement does come up, it is quickly subsiding, and a wholesome state is quickly arising if you are watching what the mind is doing. If you're not watching what the mind is doing, an unwholesome a wholesome state is quickly going away, and a unwholesome state is quickly arising. So it's just a flip-flop. Yeah, if anyone has anything to say about that, they're totally welcome. Otherwise, I'm just gonna keep shooting off these suttas because they're really good, but they're short. All right. Okay, so I'm gonna skip to number 8. This is mindfulness directed to the body. Okay. Yeah, just being aware of your body is so important. Just being aware of the direct sensations of your body. The breathing of the rising and falling of your diaphragm, the expansion and contraction of the breath, the feelings of the sensations of your face, of your hands, of the butt against your chair, just everything that the body is currently experiencing, and just watching it. Right? There's not really any room for an unwholesome thought to come up when you're watching your body, or defilement. So that's what this little passage is going to talk about. Even as one who encompasses with his mind the mighty ocean, includes thereby all the rivulets that run into the ocean, just so, O monks, whoever develops and cultivates mindfulness directed to the body includes thereby all the wholesome states that partake of supreme knowledge. Right? So if your mind is directed to the entire ocean, the simile here is that it includes all the rivers that lead into the ocean. So that's the power of mindfulness of your body, is that if you have mindfulness directed to your body, it includes every single wholesome, all of the jhanas. Just simply by practicing mindfulness of your body, you can experience every wholesome state that comes with the entire the path and the fruit. All of the wholesome states and nibbana itself, just by mindfulness of the body. Right? Because mindfulness of the body is mindfulness of the mind itself, the 6 sense bases, all of the aggregates, it's all included. Right? If you're training your mind to direct towards the body, you're training the mind itself along with insight into the 6 sense bases. Because if we think about what is the body really, it is just the 6 sense bases. There is nothing other than the 6 sense bases that is included in the body. All right, so one thing, O monks, if developed and cultivated, leads to a strong sense of urgency, to great benefit, to great security from bondage, to mindfulness and clear comprehension, to the attainment of vision and knowledge, to a pleasant dwelling in this very life, to the realization of the fruit of knowledge and liberation. What is that one thing? It is mindfulness directed to the body. If one thing, O monks, is developed and cultivated, the body is calmed, the mind is calmed, Discursive thoughts are quieted, yeah. And all wholesome states that partake of supreme knowledge reach fullness and development. What is that one thing? It is mindfulness directed to the body. If one thing, O monks, is developed and cultivated, ignorance is abandoned, supreme knowledge arises, delusion of self is given up, the underlying tendencies are eliminated, and the fetters are discarded. What is that one thing? It is mindfulness directed to the body. Right, so all of the process of jhana and nibbana, it's not something that you have to arbitrarily step by step decide to do, right? It's not like, okay, I'm in first jhana. Like a lot of Dhamma teachers teach it this way. They teach, okay, you got to first jhana. Let me know when you get to the second one. Then I'm going to tell you how to get to the third, right? It's like a step by step, like an IKEA manual, how to build a piece of furniture. And no, not really. It's just you're practicing the same thing, and the fruits, the tree of knowledge grows on its own, and the fruits flowers and blossoms on its own, just by being aware, just by developing right view, and remembering to remembering to develop right view, right sati, and taking that right effort to actually do it. Right. So that's the good news. It's extremely simple. It's because if you're looking at your bot most of the time, our sense of self is always located in the body while we're not paying attention to the experience of our body. So if we're aware of our body, how can our body be ourselves? Because the simple fact that we can be aware of it and observe it, the same way we can observe an object in the physical world, it has to be far away from us, far enough away from us to not be us. If you can be aware of something as an object, right? You can be aware of the body as an object. By definition, that object is not the subject. It's not self, right? And our suffering comes from, oh, what's going to happen to this body? It's always related to the body, right? Our activities within the world, our status within the world, our wealth, money, reputation. It's all related to the reputation, the sensual desires, and the destination of this body, right? So if we're paying attention to the experience of the body, we can see that all of those problems are rooted in delusion that this body is actually me, right? So the entire path can be simplified to mindfulness of the body, and that's the beauty of it. Does it have to be simplified to the mindfulness of the body? No, there's different tools and stuff, but it can be. So that's the power of it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really really cool. And it like I mean mindfulness of the body, right? Like you were saying, Scott, contains actually like the other foundations of mindfulness in the sense of, hey, we're directing the mind towards the body. And then we also can notice like the feelings and even kind of coming at it like the body is like an mind's object in a way as well, right? So it all kind of comes together. But just mindfulness of the body is enough, right? It's quite simple like that, yeah.
Right. And if we read any of the other, like the Satipatthana Sutta, it all includes um, mindfulness of the body. So relaxing bodily tensions. You can't relax bodily tensions unless you're aware of your body, right? And just being aware of your body does have a relaxing effect, right? It might be you're aware of your body, and there's a lot of sankharas there. There's a lot of tensions, and there's a lot of pain and anguish, and there's a lot of but simply just watching it does what that does is it doesn't allow the mind to construct a story around it, to construct a sense of self of why of all that pain that is being experienced in the body is because it's because that person wronged me. It's because my boss didn't give me the promotion. It's because right? It's because like that's the reason. It's those people out there in the world, right? But it's not. It's because you're thinking about those people. Those people have no one in the world has any amount of power over your happiness whatsoever.
No, not unless you give it to them.
Unless you give it to them, right?
Ah,
Yeah. It's
yeah.
literally all your decision. And this is such a hard pill to swallow, but it's the truth.
I know.
And it's so liberating.
Yeah.
It's,
No, well,
it's amazing.
yeah. When you talk too about it being a hard pill to swallow, Scott, is the talking about a prior sutta there and how quick the mind works as well, right? It's like not going, noticing when the mind goes into that and is like,
Right.
trying to make excuses and all that stuff and catching that. But what's so beautiful about like just the mindfulness or keeping in mind the body is that it also wakes us up to like what is happening now, right? It really does do that. Like it keeps it very grounded in that sense. So all the stories and all that stuff can be much more easily brushed away. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. The quickness of the mind is important to remember so you don't get discouraged because you may someone may hear this and recognize it as true, right? But the
Right.
mind happens so quickly that it just happens so fast that we think about that person, we think about that thing that happened. It happens so quickly that we don't catch it, and then we're suffering, and then we let ourselves fall into the delusion that we really are a victim of that situation. Right? Because even though we've heard the Dhamma before, we know that we've experienced it, and we may have experienced the truth of it for ourselves. The mind, yet again, happens so fast, right?
Yes, it does.
Even the best referees who are really quick make mistakes. Damn, something happened so quickly and they didn't catch it, right? So something
Yes.
happens so quickly in our mind that we don't catch it. It's important not to get discouraged about that, not to think that there's something untrue about our mind creating our own suffering, but just realize, oh, remember how fast it is, and okay, this is an opportunity to increase my uh, agility stat or my speed stat, right?
Right.
It is a training, it's a development.
Mhm.
Never mind. Yippee, I get to start again.
Never mind, start again. Exactly. Okay, so I'm going to, yeah, and this is just more about mindfulness of the body, but I'm going to read it just because reading it and hearing the power of these words is in and of itself a meditation. So I'm going to read the rest of it, even though it's just going to be repeating pretty much what we've already talked about. They do not partake of the deathless who do not partake of mindfulness directed to the body. They partake of the deathless who partake of mindfulness directed to the body. All right. So, this is important to realize is that in the teachings of the Buddha, there is the deathless, there is the unconditioned, right? A lot of people think that the Buddha teaches annihilationism, that there's a no self and it just disappears, and then there's no because the Buddha refutes a ground of being or side of because the Buddha refutes eternal consciousness, like that a consciousness that is an eternal and an unchanging self. Because the Buddha refutes that, people don't recognize that there is the deathless, or that which does not die, the unconditioned, the sublime liberation. Just the thing is, it's not a unchanging self. That's it. But there is the deathless, there is the unconditioned, right? There is ultimate unsurpassed freedom, right? It's just that it's a trapping to think that it is somehow dependent upon consciousness, dependent upon being some sort of all-encompassing self entity, all-encompassing, like omniscient, omniscient being that is dreaming up, like I've heard, like this is all just everyone's lives is like a dream in the infinite mind of God, Vishnu or something. Like that's a cool thing to like think about, but that there is no entity there. Like there's no ultimate self. There's just reality unfolding, and all of the unfoldment of reality, so all of the specific phenomena of reality are conditioned. Okay, they're sankharas. But there is the unconditioned, which cannot be found in any phenomena. And that happens when wisdom about the nature of conditioned reality is truly observed and experienced to the fullest extent. The deathless can be reached, right? So there is ultimate freedom that can be attained in this very life, okay? Not a bunch of lifetimes later if you pray, if you worship Amitabha enough or something. Amitabha is not going to do it for you, right? You know, I'm in these Buddhist Discord servers, and there's a lot of forms of Buddhism that just encourage wrong views that the Buddha didn't taught. I'm not saying that oh, I may have to change location. Do you guys hear a bunch of background noise right now?
No,
No?
stop picking up there.
Okay, there's just a heater that's turned on. I'm in a basement here. But anyways, let me stop insulting other sects of Buddhism, and let me continue with the with the sutta. Unless somebody else has anything they want to jump in with. No? Okay. Okay, the deathless is lost to those who have lost mindfulness directed to the body. Not lost is the deathless to those who have not lost mindfulness directed to the body. They will fail to reach the deathless who fail in mindfulness directed to the body. They gain the deathless who gain mindfulness directed to the body. Here, hold on, guys. I'm gonna move a room because the heater is really loud in here. So I'm gonna change locations. Just give me a sec.
No problem.
All right.
Yeah, I'm enjoying, listening to these suttas, and it's very, very powerful, very beneficial stuff.
Yeah, I really like it as well. It's very helpful. And it's nice to reflect on it with friends.
Yeah.
All right.
Comes up for you guys.
Yeah, no, it's very very good for my practice, and hopefully your guys is to get together, talk about Sudha. I went to Thailand for a month and I stopped doing these calls for a month, but we had a good like group of guys going, so I'll be here every Wednesday.
Keep it coming.
Yeah.
Should be able to make them pretty consistently now. So.
All right. Okay. The deathless is lost to those who have lost mindfulness directed to the body. Not lost is the deathless to those who have not lost mindfulness directed to the body. They will fail to reach the deathless who fail in mindfulness directed to the body. They gain the deathless who gain mindfulness directed to the body. Another thing I'd like to mention about mindfulness of the body is that you can observe all of the pleasant states of jhana that appear in the body because you're no longer looking for happiness somewhere else out there, right? So
Yeah,
most of yeah. So
that's
most of the
so
time,
important.
yeah, go ahead.
That's so important. Not many people talk about that when it comes to the practice of the jhana. They talk about it in the way of sitting down, like you were talking about, do a technique. The technique brings you something pretty like a bird at your window. But really what it is you have to recognize the bird's already inside before you can get to these states. You have to stop looking externally. You have to see the mind in the mind. And in this way, we
Yeah,
can start to really do the
yeah,
practice. Yeah.
right. And so like if we understand the nature of mind, we understand the conditions for happiness and satisfaction. That if we can within ourselves get into a state of happiness within ourselves, what else could we want? What else is there in this life that is worth getting?
Right.
Nothing. You're
Not
if you're
enough.
if you're happy within yourself, you're the emperor of the universe in that moment. You're
Yes.
the richest man in the world. There's no fruit, there's no happiness in being rich. There's no happiness in even, believe it or not, getting a harem of beautiful women and getting all the luxuries in the world. There's no happiness in there. There's a
That's the way.
yeah, there's a fleeting sensual pleasures. And it's even possible to be suffering during a sensual pleasure, right? And but because the mind becomes obsessed with the sensual pleasure in that moment, there is a false happiness that is experienced in that moment because for that time being, when the sensual pleasure is experienced, there's no other desires. And that's the happiness that's true happiness. It's not because of the sensual pleasure, it's because you finally decided that I can be happy now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it like puts aside for the thirsting, right? Because it's like, okay, we're taking it with the sensual pleasure. However, that is very fleeting. So what is easier, right, is going out and like, fulfilling that sensual pleasure and continuing on the treadmill, or letting go of the thirst, right? And then by letting go of the thirst, right, that's what quenches it, right? Because either way, it's so much easier
Yes.
and reliable.
Yes.
And what's cool too is you were talking like Scott in the prior sutta about the untrained mind, right? And it's like that's just it, because yeah, you could be experiencing whatever sensual pleasure, right? But even then, if the mind could be in a completely and totally state of like just absolute like desperation, like this is awful and I hate all of this. It could be aversion or craving for something more, right? And those are two sides of the same coin. So even in like, something which could be considered like, heavenly by like an ordinary standard, it's like, no, if the mind's not in the right place, it doesn't matter. Whereas if the mind is in the right place, if the mind is whole and unified, then like one could be sitting in an empty room completely and totally beaming with happiness and joy. And even when that subsides, there's still something so sublime that goes beyond.
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because that made me remember another section of this collection that I read. It'd take too long to find it, but it said that monks should be repulsed by the idea of being reborn in a heavenly realm. So even the desire to cultivate good merit and be reborn in a heavenly destination should be repulsive to you. You should have zero desire for that, because that's not going to make you happy either. No, yeah, no. Even if you die and you become a god in a heavenly bliss, and you're experiencing bliss 24/7, not even that is truly satisfying. That's dukkha also. Isn't that fucking crazy? So
it's nuts, but it's the greatest news I ever heard.
So after he said that you should be repulsed by being reborn in a heavenly realm, then he says, let alone being letting the mind go into an unwholesome state of sorrow, lamentation, and despair. So that's
Yes.
so that obviously, so like if even a heavenly realm is repulsive, how repulsive should it be to let yourself go into a state of misery?
Yes.
Right. So
and
you
this
should
is
be.
what he talks
You
about when he says we need to see the dangers in
the
sensuality.
danger. Yeah. It's repulsive,
Because when we see
right?
the danger, the gratification, and the escape, we can really get the message.
Right. And so the quicker we see the danger, the better. Because a lot of times, I myself included, we don't see the danger until it gets so bad that even in this very life, you are in hell. You're experiencing so much misery, so much pain and anguish, right? That people want to even come to the idea of wanting to commit suicide because of how much painful feelings they're experiencing, without understanding that those painful feelings can be changed by the training of their mind. So that's the good news, is that no, you're not suffering because there's a chemical imbalance in your brain that, oh, you just have a disease, and oh, poor you, you're a victim of the chemical imbalance. Here, take this pill, right? No, it's because you're thinking those kinds of thoughts that produce those kinds of miseries. And you can take the right effort to change your mind and literally become happy, right? So,
and it's a great joy to take those steps towards that. That's a wonderful thing to hear the news of. Gives us the ability to know that we have an option when we get to talk like this with each other. It's an amazing reminder. I love it.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that it doesn't take any courage. It doesn't take any. It doesn't take any unwavering. It doesn't take any strength to do it. Any steadfastness. It does take effort, and it does take courage.
Yes.
I'm not saying I'm not
ignoring this stuff.
Yeah, I'm not saying like, oh, you're depressed, you have anxiety, just don't have depression, just don't have anxiety. I'm not saying that. It takes courage, but I'm saying your depression and your anger. Yeah, there is a way. Yeah. And you can see the way on the faces of those who go that way, just by how happy this person is here, smiling and laughing the whole time, right? Why is he
Yeah,
so happy? What does he have that he's so happy? Why is someone else so miserable, right? Because the training of your own mind, right?
Mhm. And it's
Um,
never anything that you can just hear, it's always something you have to see for yourself,
yeah,
and so maybe the words
yeah.
they may open something up or flick a light switch on or something like that, but everyone listening must look too, because then they can really see.
Yes.
That's when it really fucking hits home.
To be understood for yourself, seen for yourself. Come and see for
Yes,
yourself. Nobody else is
yes,
going to do it for you. So
right.
that's the
And I think
power.
in the Bible it talks about it. It says to be known is terrifying. So to know yourself truly, it can be scary, but it's a wonderful thing to do. It's really the only thing to do.
Yeah, it's the only thing to do. Like if you know yourself, you know God. If you know yourself, you know reality. Because where else is reality experienced besides the subjective? You
Yeah.
know, you can infer that there is a separate reality, but we're not even going to get into that because we're more interested about suffering and the cessation of suffering, right?
Yes.
We don't really give a fuck about how we got here, what there is, what other things there might be out there, whether it's what is made of consciousness or made of matter, right? Does that make you happy or does that end your suffering? No. So like that's
Oh, it's
really
just more to pull on the pile.
yeah. I mean, I'm not saying it's not interesting to talk if people who are
Right.
interested in talking about that's fine, but I'm talking about as per the teachings of the Buddha, the only thing that the Buddha teaches is suffering and the end of suffering.
Yeah.
And that's becomes more and more interesting to somebody who experiences the truth of that more and more. Because it's like if you're so happy that you really don't care about anything else, right? What else could
Yeah.
you want, right?
That, that's a good question, because normally whatever that other thing that we want is the obstacle, right? And it's just seeing that and being like, wait a minute, we don't need that thing. And then we're back here just happy campers.
I need to skip now that you mentioned that. I'm gonna try to skip to another sutta that talks about that specifically. Um, I'll take a second here. Okay, so there's so many things that are spontaneously arising in the conversation that's related to something I read in this body of work that I really want to just skip to it and find it so I could read it right away, but I think that might derail the conversation. So I
I,
think I'm just gonna continue and just read another one because it's all related, right? It's
Yeah,
all.
yeah.
yeah,
Uh,
we'll get there.
well, yeah, we'll get there eventually. Uh, um, okay, there is one that I had pre-planned in reading, so I'm gonna read that one. And it's about the kind of wrong views that are actually an obstacle to liberation. And these wrong views are very common in kind of religion and like other types of meditation or other types of spirituality. But these are actually very common views that should be understood, even for those who are experienced in the Dhamma. Um, it's good to recognize. So this one is called the three sectarian tenets. There are, O monks, three sectarian tenets, if they are fully examined, investigated, and discussed, will end in a doctrine of inaction, even if adopted because of tradition. What are these three tenets? There are monks, some ascetics and Brahmins, who teach and hold this view. Whatever a person experiences, be it pleasure, pain, or neutral feeling, all is caused by past action. There are others who teach and hold this view. Whatever a person experiences, all that is caused by God's creation. And there are still other ascetics and Brahmins who teach and hold this view. Whatever a person experiences is uncaused and unconditioned. Now, monks, I approached those ascetics and Brahmins holding the first view and said to them, is it true, as they say, that you venerable ones teach and hold the view that whatever a person experiences, all that is caused by past action, right? So everything that is experienced here now is caused by something way off in the distance past action, right? Maybe in lifetimes ago, right? This is common. When they affirmed it, and some people think this is what the Buddha taught. But here it is in the Pali Canon, the Buddha saying he doesn't teach this. Okay, so when they affirmed it, I said to them, if that is so, venerable sirs, then it is due to past action done in a former life that people kill, steal, and engage in sexual misconduct, that they speak falsehood, utter malicious words, speak harshly, and indulge in idle talk, that they are covetous and malevolent, and hold false views. But those who have recourse to past action as the decisive factor will lack the impulse and effort for doing this or not doing that, since they have no real valid ground for asserting that this or that ought to be done or ought not to be done. The term ascetics does not rightly apply to them, living without mindfulness and self-control. Right? So being a victim and blaming things on your past actions instead of watching what the mind is doing, right? The suffering that the mind is creating here and now in this very moment. Right? So thinking, oh, there's nothing that can be done because it's all happening because of past action. That is a wrong view. And he's saying you don't even have the right to call yourself an ascetic. Like that's what he's like, you can't even. Yeah. I think that's great. All right, this monks. This monks is my first justified rebuke to those ascetics and Brahmins who teach and hold such a view. Yeah, so like I've heard it said before, the Buddha is the most sane person to ever live. He just the Buddha's teachings are very sensical. They make sense. They're common sense to be seen and understood by you, right? It's not a whole the ways of God are unfathomable and there's no so I had to like get it through the Pope, right? And hope that one day they'll have Sky Daddy will save me. No, like if you understand it, you can see it for yourself, see the truth of it. And then once the important part about seeing the truth of it for yourself is that's when you develop confidence.
Yes.
But sorry guys. Yeah, I'm off on I'm on a family visit for Thanksgiving. Anyways, uh the where did I leave
Confidence.
off? Yeah, okay. So you develop confidence because of you've seen it for yourself, not confidence because a holy man told you it's true, right? Because a holy man said, "Oh, you have to believe this, or hellfire will happen to you," right? You have to believe this, or you're not part of our club, or whatever, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Very much so. But it's important, like that you said, that it's important to study for us, because the way that we talk about right view, when we read about it in the suttas, when we first learn about the teachings of the Buddha, it can be confusing because we hear one of the ways right view is defined. What is right view? Right view knows wrong view as wrong view. You know, and when we hear that at first, we go, oh, I don't know how that's possible. But if you look, it's all there. We're reading it now. You know, this is how right view knows wrong view as wrong view is. We hear the Buddha tell us, hey, this is wrong view. And this is why. Because it leaves us without recourse. It leaves us without choice if we hold this view. So it's pretty cool that we hear about the other views that are wrong view, you know, and then we can better identify when we try to pick them up ourselves.
Right.
Make sure that
it's kind
view and right virtue all protected.
The view is kind of like a cop out. It's like a cop out to not actually do the right practice that will and then you don't even have to like believe in it. You can see the truth of it by seeing, oh yeah, this leads to suffering for myself.
Yeah. And when we see that's how we really know wrong view as wrong view, because we know wrong view cannot lead to the end of suffering. So it's really cool. It like reinforces both ends, you know, like not only we know, oh yeah, right view is definitely right view, but we also at the same time, by the nature of the beast, oh, wrong view is certainly wrong view.
Yeah.
Very much confidence comes from that.
Yeah. Like when you see, that's part of stream entry is seeing this is the path and this is not the path. All right.
Yes.
Saying like this is the way, clearly understanding that for yourself. And then the more advanced and developed your practice becomes, the more immediately apparent the suffering is when you don't do the right thing or when you go off the path. It's like before we can kind of like avoid it for long enough, but
yes.
The more advanced your practice becomes, the more it hurts to stray from it.
Yes. Very much so. Suffering less, noticing it more.
All right, guys. You know, I really wish I could keep going, but I have to go. I think the right thing to do here is go spend time with my family because we're rarely together. So we're gonna go ice skating or something. But
cool.
If you guys want to continue, go ahead without me, but I gotta go.
All right.
But yeah, thank you so much for coming.
Yeah,
thank you. Yeah.
Had a really good time. We'll do it again soon. Enjoy your family and your time.
Yeah. Peace out, dude.
Yeah, enjoy.